If you think betrayal only comes from enemies, let me tell you what happened when my own son tried to take control of my life the week after we buried his father. My name is Evelyn Carter, a 68-year-old grandmother from Columbus, Georgia, and this is how grief opened the door for the kind of betrayal I never thought I'd face from my own child. It started 5 days after we laid my husband, Charles, to rest. I was still sleeping in his old t-shirt, still reaching across the bed expecting to feel him there. His coffee mug was sitting exactly where he left it. Some mornings I would call out, "Charles, you want eggs or oatmeal?" before remembering he wasn't coming back. That morning, I was sitting at the table staring at his empty chair when my oldest son, Daryl, walked in without knocking. His wife, Tiana, followed close behind him, her perfume hitting the room before she did. "Morning, Ma," Daryl said, giving me a quick side hug. "Morning, Mama Evelyn," Tiana added, handing me a bag of fast food biscuits. She smiled, but there was something tight and impatient behind it. We chatted for maybe a minute, but I could feel it, something heavy, uncomfortable, waiting to be said. Finally, Daryl cleared his throat. "Ma, we need to talk about some things." My stomach dropped. That sentence has never once in history led to good news. "I just buried my husband, baby," I whispered. "Can it wait?" "That's exactly why it can't," Tiana said, sliding into a chair. "There are financial matters, the house, accounts, bills. We need to be proactive." They were talking too fast, too rehearsed, too eager. "I'm not concerned about money right now," I said. "I'm concerned about making it through today without crying at the mailbox." Daryl sighed, the way children sigh when they think they know better than you. "Ma, this is about protecting you. This house is too big. The neighborhood isn't as safe as it used to be. Daddy wouldn't want you struggling." "Struggling?" I repeated. "I've lived here for 32 years. Tiana reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table like a business proposal. Inside were brochures for senior living homes, papers titled Financial Power of Attorney, another labeled Temporary Guardianship. My hands trembled. "Guardianship?" I asked. Daryl leaned forward. "Ma, you forget things sometimes. You lost your debit card twice last month. You left the stove on. You keep repeating stories. We just want to make sure things are handled correctly before something serious happens." A sting went through me, not from his words, but from how easy they came to him, like he'd practiced them. "I'm grieving," I said, voice shaking, "not incapable." Tiana gave a quick, irritated exhale. "We're not saying you can't function. We're saying you need supervision. It's better if the authority stays in the family rather than the state stepping in." That word, family, felt like a knife today. "I'm not signing anything," I told them firmly. "Not today." A crack appeared in Daryl's expression. Concern slipped away, replaced by something colder. "Ma," he said slowly, "Daddy didn't leave clear instructions. No formal will. If you don't let us help you, things could get complicated." His tone wasn't caring. It was threatening. And as I looked at him, my firstborn, my pride for so many years, I remembered something Charles whispered to me in the hospital before he died. "Evie, when I'm gone, call Miss Lopez, not the kids. She knows what to do." At the time, I thought he meant funeral paperwork. But sitting at that table, watching my own son circle me like a wolf around weakened prey, I felt the truth settle like a stone in my chest. Charles had seen this coming, and I was about to learn just how far blood can go when money is involved. If I had ignored the folder my son pushed across my kitchen table, maybe I could have convinced myself he was just overwhelmed by grief. But the moment I saw the word guardianship, my heart knew the truth long before my mind accepted it. Because that wasn't control. That was control. After Daryl and Tiana left, arguing with each other all the way to their car, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the same walls Charles helped paint when we first moved in. The house felt different now, heavier somehow, like the betrayal had seeped into the drywall. I tried to calm myself, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. My own child, my first baby, trying to take over my life like I was some burden he needed to manage. That's when I remembered the name, Miss Lopez. 3 weeks before he passed, Charles had pulled me close with what little strength he had left. "Evie," he whispered, "something ain't right with Daryl. Promise me you'll call Miss Lopez when the time comes. She's the only one who knows what I did." I thought he was confused, or maybe the medication was talking. But now, sitting alone with the taste of betrayal in my mouth, I grabbed my phone. Her number was still written on the sticky note Charles left in his Bible. Attorney Maria Lopez, Elder Law and Estate Protection. I took a shaky breath and dialed. She answered on the second ring. "This is Mrs. Lopez." "My name is Evelyn Carter," I said softly. "My husband, Charles Carter, told me to call you." Silence on her end. Then a slow, steady exhale. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "I've been expecting your call." A chill ran through me. She asked if I was safe, if I was alone, if anyone had tried to pressure me into signing paperwork. My voice broke as I told her everything, how Daryl had shown up, how he talked to me like I was incapable, how he'd brought guardianship documents like he'd been waiting for his father to die. She didn't sound surprised at all. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently, "your husband came to see me nearly a year ago. He had concerns about your son's behavior." "Concerns?" I whispered. "About Daryl?" She continued, her voice calm but firm. "He noticed changes. Comments about money, frustration over inheritance rules, conversations that made him uncomfortable. So he took steps to protect you." "Protect me from my own child?" I asked, tears burning my eyes. She sighed softly. "Unfortunately, yes." Then she said something that made the room spin. "Your husband established a living trust in your name. This house, your savings, your accounts, everything he and you built over 40 years has already been transferred into that trust. Only you have authority over it, no one else, not even your children." I froze. "What does that mean?" I whispered. "It means," she said slowly, "your son has no legal right to control anything you own. He can pressure you, he can intimidate you, but legally, he has nothing." Nothing. That word gave me strength I didn't know I still had. I wiped my tears. "What do I do now?" "I want you to come into my office tomorrow," she said. "We'll review all of Charles's arrangements. And Evelyn, bring any paperwork your son gave you. Don't sign anything, not one page." When the call ended, I sat in the quiet for a long time. My grief and anger swirled together until it was hard to tell them apart. I used to think the worst pain in the world was losing a spouse. But there's a different kind of pain. The kind that comes when you realize your own child sees you not as a mother, but as an opportunity. As I sat there, I felt something shift inside me. A steadiness I hadn't felt since Charles died. The same steadiness he used to carry when life tried to break him. My husband had seen the danger long before I did, and he hadn't left me helpless. He left me a shield. I just had to learn how to use it. The next morning, I dressed slower than usual. Grief makes you move like your bones are heavier. But today, something else weighed on me too. A new awareness, a painful one. My child didn't come to comfort me. He came to claim me. I arrived at Miss Lopez's office clutching the folder Daryl left behind like it was evidence from a crime scene. The receptionist smiled kindly, the kind of smile people give widows and grandmothers who look like they've been fighting battles alone. "Mrs. Carter," she said. Miss Lopez came out from her office and hugged me. Not a weak, polite hug, but the kind that holds you steady when your knees want to buckle. "Let's sit down," she said softly. Her office was warm, with plants and framed quotes on the wall. One of them said, "Family is a blessing until it becomes a bargaining chip." I stared at it longer than I meant to. We sat across from each other, and she opened a thick binder with my husband's name on the front. My breath caught in my throat. "Evelyn," she said gently, "your husband worked quietly and carefully. He trusted you, but he didn't trust the intentions of those around you." I blinked hard. I didn't want to believe it, not about my own son. She nodded. Betrayal from inside the family hurts differently, but it's more common than you'd think. She turned a page and began explaining what Charles had done. A living trust, transferring the house, the land, the savings, even old certificates of deposit. A health directive, naming me alone as my decision maker. A power of attorney, but only activated if I requested it in writing. And a line in his own handwriting. "This is to ensure my wife is never controlled, coerced, or cornered." My eyes stung. "Charles always said he trusted you," I whispered. "I just didn't know he meant like this." She gave me a sympathetic smile. "He didn't want to scare you. He wanted to protect you." Then she tapped the folder Daryl had given me. "Now, let's talk about these papers." As she flipped through them, her eyebrows drew together. "Your daughter-in-law prepared these," she said. "Not a lawyer, not a professional, and frankly, they're dangerous." "Dangerous how?" I asked. "If you had signed this guardianship form, it would have given Daryl legal control over your finances, medical decisions, and property. He could have sold your house, drained your savings, put you somewhere you didn't want to be." My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. "They said it was to protect me," I murmured. She shook her head. "Evelyn, this wasn't protection. This was positioning." I felt the tears before they fell. I raised that boy. I worked overtime for his school clothes, for his basketball camps. I prayed over him when he was sick. I thought he loved me. "He probably does," she said gently. "But love twisted by greed becomes leverage, and leverage is not love." I covered my face with my hands and cried. Not the loud sobbing kind, just quiet, exhausted tears that come when life cracks you open. When I finally got myself together, Miss Lopez slid a box of tissues towards me. "What do I do now?" I asked, my voice small. She leaned forward. "Now we draw lines, clear ones. You are protected legally, but your emotional safety matters too." "What if he comes back?" I whispered. "He will," she said without hesitation. "People don't walk away from what they think they're entitled to." That truth hit hard. She continued, "When he does, I want you to stay calm. Don't argue, don't sign anything. Simply tell him all financial matters are now handled through your attorney." I nodded, though my hands trembled. As I stood to leave, she placed her hand on mine. "Evelyn, your husband didn't just leave you a plan. He left you power, and it's time you use it." Driving home, I didn't feel strong yet, but I felt clearer. The fog of grief had been pierced by a new feeling, resolve. Because if my own child thought I would be an easy target, he was about to learn that this old woman still had fight left in her. A mother always knows when a storm is coming, even when the sky looks clear. And when I pulled into my driveway that afternoon and saw Daryl's car parked there, engine still running, I knew the storm had arrived. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Miss Lopez's words echoed in my mind. He will come back. I took a breath, lifted my chin, and stepped out of the car. Daryl jumped out of his, pacing like he'd rehearsed what he was about to say. Tiana sat in the passenger seat with her sunglasses on, pretending she wasn't watching my every move. "Ma, we need to talk," he said, voice tense. I walked up my steps slowly. "All right, baby, talk." He followed me to the porch, frustration radiating off him. I talked to a buddy of mine. He's a financial advisor, Daryl began. He said if Daddy didn't leave a detailed will, then we all need to step in before the courts get involved. I said quietly, unlocking my door but not inviting him in. He also said seniors get taken advantage of all the time. Scams, loans, bad decisions. He said if I don't help you now, it could ruin everything we've built as a family. I turned to him. Baby, what exactly have you built? He swallowed, caught off guard. I'm trying to help you, Ma. No, I said softly. You're trying to help yourself. His jaw clenched. Is that what you think of me? After everything I've done? After all the times I've stepped up for this family? I didn't respond. Silence can expose the truth faster than any accusation. He took a breath, lowering his voice like he was trying a new angle. Manipulation always changes tone before it changes tactics. Ma, we found out the house might qualify for a reverse mortgage program. We're just trying to put options on the table. You can't live here alone. What if you fall? What if something happens? I lived here just fine before you brought brochures to my table, I said. Tiana finally stepped out of the car. Mrs. Carter, we're not the enemy. This house is too much for you. You need supervision before something serious happens. I stared at her. Supervision or access? That hit home. Her cheeks flushed. You know what? Daryl snapped. I'm trying to do the right thing and you're being stubborn. Daddy didn't think ahead and now everything is a mess. If you won't sign guardianship, then we'll have to get the courts involved. My heart should have stopped. Instead, it steadied. Daryl, I said, your father thought ahead more than you know. He blinked. What? I talked to my attorney today. The color drained from his face. Your what? My attorney, I repeated. The one your daddy hired last year. Everything is already arranged. His brows furrowed, confusion battling panic. What arrangements? I folded my arms. Everything your father built is protected. The house, the accounts, the land. There is nothing for you to manage, nothing you can take, nothing you can claim. Silence. Just the wind brushing the trees and the betrayal settling into his features like a shadow. Finally, he asked, voice shaking with anger, So you went behind my back? No, baby, I said softly. Your father went behind yours, because he saw something in you neither of us wanted to see. His nostrils flared, and for the first time, I saw the truth plainly. My son wasn't grieving. He was calculating. Tiana stepped closer. That's not fair, Evelyn. We're family. We should have been included. Family doesn't push guardianship papers on a grieving widow. Family doesn't circle a house like vultures. Daryl took a step back, the reality settling into his bones. So that's how it's going to be? It's how it has to be. He shook his head slowly. You'll regret this, Ma. No, baby, I whispered, but you might. He turned, got back in the car, and slammed the door. As they drove off, I stood on my porch feeling something I hadn't felt since the day Charles died. Strength. It wasn't just anger. It was clarity. And clarity is a kind of power. I went inside, locked the door, and whispered to my husband's empty chair, Thank you, Charles. You saw what I couldn't. But the storm wasn't over, because betrayal doesn't retreat quietly. It regroups, it strategizes, and it always comes back for more. A few quiet days passed after that confrontation, but quiet doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's just the world taking a breath before the next punch lands. And sure enough, the next hit came on a Wednesday morning. I was sitting on the porch sipping tea, something Charles and I used to do together, when the mail truck pulled up and the carrier handed me a thick envelope. Carter Family Legal Notice. Return address, Daryl Carter and Associates. My stomach went cold. I opened it slowly, hands shaking even before I knew what was inside. A letter slid out along with several printed forms. The letter read, Mom, since you refuse to cooperate, we've had no choice but to begin the process of petitioning the court for temporary guardianship. This is for your safety and the stability of our family. Please understand we're doing what's necessary. Daryl. My knees went weak. He was really doing it. My own child taking legal action to declare me incapable? It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and twisted something sharp. I had carried that boy for 9 months, wiped his nose, prayed over him, cheered him through graduations, and now he was trying to erase my autonomy like I was a stranger? I wiped my eyes and called Miss Lopez. She answered immediately. Evelyn, what happened? I whispered. He filed. He actually filed. Bring everything to my office, now. When I arrived, Miss Lopez read through the papers with a calm expression that somehow steadied me. This isn't unusual, she said. It's aggressive, but it's also sloppy. He doesn't have evidence. No doctor's note, no behavioral documentation, nothing. But he still filed against his own mother, I said, voice breaking. She gave me a sympathetic look. Greed doesn't care about bloodlines, Evelyn. It only cares about opportunity. She made copies, typed up a response letter, and said she'd handle the rest. But as I stood to leave, she touched my arm. You need to prepare yourself emotionally, she said. This type of betrayal, it digs deep. It won't be over quickly. I nodded, though my heart felt like a bruised peach, soft in all the places it should have been strong. When I got home, the phone started ringing. Tiana. I let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, another call. Daryl this time. Then a text message. Please stop making this harder than it has to be. Harder? I wasn't the one dragging my mother into court. I sat on my couch, staring at the wall until the sun dipped low. My house felt different now, less like a home and more like a battlefield waiting for the next blow. That evening, my younger daughter, Monica, knocked on my door. God bless her, she drove 4 hours just because she saw a glimpse of stress in my voice when we spoke earlier. When she stepped inside, she took one look at me and said, Mama, what did Daryl do? I handed her the papers. Her face twisted with hurt and anger. He filed? He really filed? Oh, Mama. She pulled me into her arms, and I cried the way you cry when you're too tired to hold yourself together, quietly into someone's shoulder. Monica sat with me on the couch, rubbing my back the way I once rubbed hers after a nightmare. Mama, she said softly, you don't deserve this, and Daddy wouldn't want this. Hearing her say his name out loud cracked something in me. Your daddy tried to warn me, I said. He set everything up so I'd be protected, but I didn't think Daryl would go this far. Monica shook her head. He's been different for years. Money changes people. And Tiana? She's been whispering in his ear since before Daddy got sick. That thought made me sick to my stomach. Had they been planning this? Waiting for Charles to pass? Mama, listen to me, Monica said firmly. You're not alone. I'm here. Auntie Joyce is here. Miss Lopez is here. We're going to fight this. I felt tears again, but this time they weren't from weakness. They were from gratitude. For the people who did love me. For the family who wasn't trying to break me down. Later that night, after Monica fell asleep on the recliner, I stood in the doorway watching her. My sweet girl, my constant, my reminder that not every child turns away from their mother. Maybe motherhood was never meant to be balanced. Maybe love always flows heavier in one direction. But betrayal? That hits straight down the middle. As I turned off the lights, I whispered into the quiet, Charles, I hope you're watching, because our son, he's becoming someone I don't recognize. But I wasn't giving up. A line had been drawn, and for the first time since Charles died, I felt something rise up inside me. Fight. When someone you love betrays you, it doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your rhythm. You start second-guessing your steps, your instincts, even your worth. That's where I was the following week. standing in my kitchen stirring a pot of soup I had no appetite for, when there was a loud knock at my door. Not a polite knock. We need answers knock. Monica woke up from the recliner. "Mama, you expecting someone?" "No," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. When I opened the door, my younger son Caleb stood there, breathing hard, eyes blazing. "Mama, is it true?" he asked. "Is what true?" He stepped inside, voice shaking. "Did Daryl really file for guardianship? Over you? Over our mother?" I closed my eyes. "Yes, baby, he did." Caleb slammed his hand against the doorframe. "Lord, Mama, how could he? How could he go that far?" I could see tears threatening behind his anger. My sweet boy, always the peacekeeper, always trying to fix everything. This broke him in a way I hadn't seen since he was 12 and our dog got hit by a car. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this," I whispered. He shook his head. "No, Mama. I'm sorry you had to live it." He hugged me, holding on tight, like he was afraid I might crumble if he let go. When he finally stepped back, he looked at the soup on the stove. "You ain't been eatin'." I tried to smile. Grief makes everything taste the same. Caleb nodded slowly, and stress takes whatever's left. We sat down at the kitchen table, the same table Daryl had pushed those papers across. I kept glancing at the chair he'd sat in, and every time I did, something inside me tightened. Caleb followed my gaze. "Mama, I'll be honest. Daryl's been chasing money for years. Always jealous, always comparing himself to everybody." "I knew he struggled," I said. "But this? Trying to declare me incompetent? Trying to take over my life?" Caleb's jaw clenched. "This ain't about helping you. This is about control, and probably about whatever Daddy left behind." I swallowed hard. He was right. "But, Mama," Caleb hesitated, "there's something else you should know." My heart skipped. "What is it, Caleb?" He rubbed his hands together like he didn't want to say it, but needed to. "I heard from a coworker that Daryl's been talking, bragging, saying he's about to come up, saying he's going to be set for life once the courts fix the situation with his mama." The words hit me like a punch. My own child speaking about me like I was a problem to be solved, a resource, a target. Caleb continued softly. "Mama, he's been telling people you're confused, that you forget things, that you ain't safe alone." I closed my eyes in pain. He's building a case. Yes. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He's trying to paint a picture, and he don't care if it hurts you. A tear rolled down my cheek. Not from sadness this time, but from clarity. I stood up. "Caleb, baby, can you drive me somewhere?" "Anywhere, Mama." "Take me to Miss Lopez." His eyebrows lifted, impressed. "You ready to fight?" I took a breath. "I'm ready to protect myself, the way your daddy wanted me to." When we arrived at the office, Miss Lopez greeted us immediately. "Mrs. Carter," she said, noticing the determination in my eyes. "Something's changed." "Yes," I replied. "I'm done letting Daryl speak for me. I want to make things official. Whatever papers we need to file, whatever statements you need me to make, I'll do them." She nodded, proud. "Then let's begin." For the next hour, we went through documents, prepared affidavits, and listed every interaction Daryl had initiated, including his attempts to pressure me, the guardianship paperwork, and now the rumors he was spreading. Caleb added his own statement, confirming what he'd heard. When we finished, Miss Lopez leaned back and looked at me with a soft smile. "Evelyn, your husband would be so proud. You're reclaiming your power." I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not grief, strength. Old women aren't weak. We're seasoned. We've survived storms that would blow younger folks away. And now I knew. If Daryl wanted a battle, he had walked into the wrong war, because I wasn't fighting alone anymore, and I wasn't fighting just for myself. I was fighting for my dignity, for my autonomy, for the life Charles had spent years making sure I could keep, and I would not lose. Some moments in life change everything, not because they're loud, but because they reveal the truth so clearly you can't look away anymore. That moment came for me on a Thursday morning when Miss Lopez called and said, "Evelyn, the judge wants to see you. Today." My heart dropped. "Is something wrong?" "No," she assured me. "This is actually a good sign. It means the court is reviewing the guardianship petition quickly. They want to hear from you directly." Caleb drove me, and Monica met us there. I wore the navy blue dress Charles always loved, the one he said made me look like a woman who commands a room. I needed that energy today. When we entered the courthouse, the air felt colder, more serious, more final. Daryl and Tiana were already inside the small courtroom. He looked surprised to see me walk in steady and confident. Tiana nudged him like she wanted him to put on a sympathetic face, but he didn't manage more than a stiff nod. Miss Lopez leaned toward me. "Remember, speak calmly, tell the truth, let him reveal himself." I nodded, though my heart was pounding in my ears. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, began flipping through paperwork. "Mr. Carter," she said to Daryl without looking up, "you filed for temporary guardianship of your mother on the grounds that she is unable to manage her own affairs. Is that correct?" Daryl stood. He smoothed his shirt like he was preparing for a performance. "Yes, Your Honor. My mother has been struggling, losing things, forgetting important details. We're just trying to protect her before she makes irreversible mistakes." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And what evidence do you have of these claims?" "Well," Daryl glanced at Tiana, "I mean, I've seen her forget things. She repeats stories. She left the stove on once. And she just acts confused sometimes." "Medical documents?" the judge asked. "No, but..." "Doctor's report?" "No, but..." "Police welfare checks? Incident reports?" "None, Your Honor, but..." She held up a hand. "Thank you." Then her eyes turned to me. "Mrs. Carter, do you feel you are unable to manage your daily affairs?" I stood slowly. My hands shook, but my voice did not. "No, Your Honor. I'm grieving, not incapable. I pay my bills. I cook my meals. I do my shopping. I manage my accounts. I drive safely. I live independently. My husband passed a few weeks ago, and I've had some emotional days, but confusion? Inability to function? No, ma'am." The judge nodded. "Do you understand your son is attempting to take legal control over your decisions and assets?" "Yes, Your Honor, and I do not consent." Daryl shifted, looking agitated. "Your Honor," he interjected, "my mother is being influenced. People are putting ideas in her head. She needs guidance." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Carter, your mother is a competent adult. This court will not strip her of her autonomy without substantial proof. Tell me specifically, what irreversible harm is she at risk of?" Daryl opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He hadn't expected to be questioned. He thought his words alone would be enough. Miss Lopez stood. "Your Honor, if I may add, Mrs. Carter's husband established a living trust specifically to prevent financial exploitation. All assets are secured. She is not at risk. However, given Mr. Carter's actions, pressuring her to sign guardianship papers days after her husband's death, spreading false claims, and attempting to gain control of her estate, my client is at risk." A murmur rippled through the room. The judge turned to Daryl. "Is this true?" He swallowed hard. I was just trying to help." The judge leaned back, studying him. "Mr. Carter, what you have done is deeply concerning. Filing guardianship over a grieving parent without evidence suggests ulterior motives." Tiana stood abruptly. "This is all being blown out of proportion." "Sit down," the judge snapped. Tiana dropped back into her seat. Then the judge looked at me with a softness that surprised me. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently, "do you feel safe from coercion and manipulation?" I breathed in slowly. "I do now." She nodded once, firm, decisive. Petition denied. Daryl's mouth fell open. The judge continued, Mr. Carter, if you pursue guardianship again without legitimate cause, you may face legal consequences. And if I find you have attempted to pressure or defraud your mother, those consequences will be severe. Do you understand? He didn't speak. Do you understand? She repeated. Yes, Your Honor, he finally forced out. The gavel hit the desk. It was over. But emotionally, a different kind of ending had just begun. As Daryl stormed out of the courtroom, he didn't look at me, not once. The son I raised, the boy I carried, fed, taught, loved, walked past me like I was a stranger. Or worse, an obstacle. But I didn't collapse. I didn't cry, because truth had walked into that courtroom today. Truth about him. Truth about me. Truth about the protection Charles had set in motion long before his last breath. And sometimes truth hurts, but sometimes it frees you. There's a strange quiet that follows a storm. Not peace exactly, but the space where you finally hear yourself think again. That's the silence I walked into after the court hearing. It wasn't victory I felt. It was something heavier, something bittersweet. Because winning against your own child never feels like winning. It feels like burying something you never thought you'd lose. When we stepped out of the courthouse, Monica held one of my hands and Caleb held the other, like I was the child now and they were guiding me across a busy street. You did good, Mama, Monica whispered. You were strong, Caleb added. I nodded, but my eyes drifted toward the parking lot. Daryl and Tiana were standing by their car. He looked at me. No warmth, no remorse, just a deep, burning resentment. Tiana tugged his arm. He pulled away. Then he shouted across the parking lot, You didn't have to make me look like a fool. I didn't respond. Some battles don't need a reply. The truth had already been spoken where it mattered. They drove off in a screech of tires. And just like that, my son was gone. Not physically, but emotionally. Maybe he had been slipping away long before this day. Back home, the quiet was thick. I made a cup of tea, sat in Charles's old chair, and let the reality settle. My husband had protected me. My younger children had defended me. The courts had affirmed me. But none of that eased the ache of losing Daryl. Not to death, but to greed. Late that evening, as the sun dipped low, Monica and Caleb sat with me in the living room. Mama, Monica said, you don't have to talk about it now, but how are you really feeling? I stared at the tea in my hands, like my heart split clean down the middle, half grateful, half grieving. Caleb leaned forward. You didn't deserve any of this. Daddy saw something in Daryl we didn't want to admit. Maybe one day he'll understand what he did. Maybe he won't. But you're safe now. I nodded slowly. Safe, yes. But whole? Not yet. That night, I prayed for the first time since Charles passed. Not for strength, not for protection, not even for justice. I prayed for release. Release from bitterness. Release from guilt. Release from the illusion that I could have loved Daryl out of his darkness. Because the truth is, a mother can love her child, but love can't compete with greed that grows unchecked. The next morning, I went to visit Charles's grave. I brought fresh flowers and sat on the cool grass. Well, my love, I whispered, you were right. You saw the danger before I did. You knew what might come, and you left a path for me to follow. The wind rustled the leaves above me, gentle and familiar. Thank you, I said softly, for protecting me, even after goodbye. I stayed there a long time, long enough for the pain to soften into something else, something like acceptance. When I finally stood to leave, I didn't feel broken. I felt rebuilt, stronger, wiser, untouchable in ways I had never been before. As I walked back to my car, I realized something important. Peace isn't something life hands you. It's something you choose to stand in, even after your heart has been tested in the worst ways. And I chose peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of knowing I survived something that could have swallowed me whole. When I got home, Caleb had fixed the porch light that hadn't worked since Christmas. Monica had stocked my fridge. My house felt warm again, alive, whole. I didn't lose all my children, just the one who chose a different path. And maybe, someday, he'll find his way back. But until then, I'll keep living with dignity, with clarity, and with the love of the family who stayed. Because real love protects. Real love stands beside you. Real love doesn't need your signature on a document to show up. And that's the love I choose now, every single day. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever faced family betrayal or had to find strength in the middle of heartbreak, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mabel's Stories for more real, heartfelt tales.